Okay, ready? Let's do this.
Welcome to Talking Design and Engineering by MakeLab. Insights and advice from industry leaders driving innovation and shaping the future of people, processes, and technology in the world of physical products.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Perla. I am the host of the Talking Design and Engineering podcast put on by us and MakeLab. Today, we will be talking about a new take on the reformer, the Pilates reformer, a smart Pilates reformer. And with me is Kaleen Canevari, founder and CEO of Flexia.
Hey, it's great
Welcome.
to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited we got to do this because, you're on the West Coast and, now I am.
The last time we talked, you did say something about maybe moving to the West Coast. I just want to put it out there.
Oh my
the
God.
West Coast, best coast. I'm just saying,
all my West Coast friends have said that.
It's awesome for a reason.
It is pretty awesome. I don't know if I can deal with the spiders in Northern California, but
Yeah, block that out.
yeah, I haven't seen too many. And here's the thing. So we have peppermint spray on the desk that wards them away.
Oh.
And then we have soapy water spray, which kills all bugs.
I have never heard about this peppermint spray thing.
Yes.
Okay.
It's amazing and it works. And so we just spray it in the corners every day.
All right.
And they hate the smell.
My husband is terrified of spiders. So I'm the spider disposal person. The spider guard.
Do you take them outside?
It depends on what they are. It depends on
Okay.
what they are. Sometimes I'll take them outside, but most of the time I'm like,
Yeah. Are they
Go away.
gnarly? What's the gnarliest?
in a house, they're not bad.
Okay.
Garden spiders, daddy
Okay.
long legs, but
Daddy long. They're friends.
my dad's shop, for example, up in the Sacramento area, doesn't get used every day. Black widows galore.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Aren't those the ones that can kill you?
I think so, but they're awful. You walk in,
Listen.
you have to do a pass of all the areas that you might walk in, because we have a travel trailer, and our little wheel chocks have gaps in them, and so anytime we take the
Not
trailer
gaps.
out, we have to for black widows. And I'm always like, oh, where's the air hose? Where's the garden hose? Let me spray them out, make sure everything comes out.
Yeah.
Before I put them inside the trailer for travel.
Oh
I
my
don't-
gosh. Yeah.
terrified.
No, I'm not about this. This
Anyway.
is the one reason why I couldn't do Australia. Australia is
no.
a scary place.
No, thank you.
You just see the TikTok. If you
Yes.
just look up Australia spiders, TikTok is
No, thank you.
just take the house.
Yeah.
You can live in it. I will move.
I was in
Mr.
Costa
Spider.
Rica once and a big moth landed on me. It was like this size. It's just a moth. But I flipped out. It was flapping and it was all over me. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. It's not good.
Oh my gosh. Okay. On that note,
Great intro.
Best Coast. Sure.
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding. I really like California. I do California. Don't hate me, New York. Don't come after me. Don't come find me. I do, but I love New York, but I do California. But anyway, yeah, so I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. How did we meet? We were just talking about this before we started rolling.
Our
But
magical friend.
Jenny Lawton, she introduced us when she was at Bolster still, right?
Yes.
And she was doing CEO forums?
Yes.
That was cool. We're just airing it all out.
Nothing like getting in a safe place with other CEOs to talk about how it really is.
Yeah. That's
Instant bonding.
yes. Yeah. And then we had the traumatic event.
We met in person, so we had never met in person, and then we went to a workshop at Jenny's, and it was a great workshop. I really liked it, but it was one of those where you're getting vulnerable in front of everybody. And
yeah. There was 16 people there.
tears were happening.
Tears were shed.
Dark, deep things were coming out.
It was called Managing Your Self-Talk. That
Yes.
should say it.
Yes.
That should explain a lot.
Self-talk.
Yeah, self-talk. And yeah, so we got real close there.
Yes, for
Nothing-
sure.
Nothing
For
like
sure.
some tears on a Sunday afternoon right before the week to get
Yeah.
everything going.
I have to say though, those are my favorite kinds of ways to meet people. Not crying all the time, but I love one-on-one vulnerable conversations that aren't just superficial. So tired of networking events.
I know.
That are just like, go to happy hour, right? But when you're, it's a little bit guided and you get to learn something a little bit more interesting or deeper about someone else.
Yeah.
I find that I can like always relate better to that.
And every founder I speak to, we just talk about like how much of a relief it is to be able to have those moments, because who else is going to understand what we deal with on a daily basis? Because it's a lot as founders. Like this founder journey is not easy. Anyone who's into it, I will always not recommend it. And then if you're still into it, then you should go for it.
Yes.
I'll tell you everything bad about it. And then if you still choose, then it's for you.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's some sort of, I don't know if it's ego or confidence or what, but you have to hear those things and go, I could do it better.
You need to have that.
And that's exactly why I was like, oh, I could do that.
This is easy.
This is no problem. Someone, maybe 10 years ago, someone gave me a like wall poster that was like, everything in business is easy and nothing ever goes wrong. And obviously it's very tongue in cheek, but I think about it a lot because it's, of course.
Wait, where did you buy that poster?
It was gifted to me. I don't know. I'm sure you can find it on Etsy or something.
Okay, I'm going to find it because I want it. Because it's just comical. Like, I feel like if I'm having a tough day and I look up at that, it'll give me a nice, good laugh.
Yes. Yes. It's very comforting to be like, to have that sarcastic thing on the wall.
Yeah.
When things are really hard, there's a little tear coming down. You go, oh, I knew this wasn't going to be easy, didn't I? Yeah. I asked for this.
And fun fact, we're in Make Lab, the San Francisco office, and you were like the first person outside of Make Lab and like Studio 55 to like see this space. And you saw it when it was a mess, boxes everywhere.
I saw it like, felt like day one.
It was.
I saw all the potential, and now like today seeing it up and running, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm really jealous.
Feel free to come by if you ever want to work out of here.
Co-working.
Seriously, this table is usually in the center and the music's on and there's a full kitchen upstairs. I usually cook something and it's a vibe.
All right.
I'm serious.
I gotta make it happen before you leave.
Yeah. I have a month.
Okay.
It's exactly 1 month.
All right.
I think it's the 20th. Yeah, exactly a month.
I gotta bring more people too so we can
That would be fun.
convince you
To stay on the best coast with all the spiders and black widows.
Oh, you figured the spiders out already.
I don't think I've been exposed enough. I don't know, man. We'll see. I could deal with roaches and rats and like these lantern fly fuckers, but I can't deal with the lantern fly fuckers. Have you heard of those?
No.
It's an invasive fly moth looking thing, and it has this red thing, but they love buildings, and so they just gather around the corners where the street meets the walls, and it's like everywhere in New York, and they come every single summer, and there's Instagram like posts about how you should kill them because they're invasive and they hurt the environment. And then, but the thing is, they jump on people. So I'll be walking and there'll be a lanternfly jumping on someone's like back in front of me.
The spiders don't jump on you here.
Don't some jump? Like the jumping ones?
They don't jump on you.
They jump next to you?
See, it's just best coast.
I love the beaches. I loved San Diego. I would live in San Diego. Like,
oh, I know.
I love San Diego. I'm still getting used to San Francisco. The food is really good. Yeah.
San Francisco isn't for everybody. I happen to love it.
Yes.
But
it's so chill. I didn't realize the population was like less than 1 million.
Yeah, the city proper, yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. But there's still a lot of people out, considering it's less than 1 million people.
It'll be really interesting to see what the stats are on how many people commute into the city.
Yeah.
Does it? I used to work in a tiny town in Indiana, and the population would double during work hours.
Whoa.
Because people would drive in.
That's crazy.
To work.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that stuff is like.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
I love these things.
Probably not as much as it used to now that we can all work from home.
That's true. Remote
most
work.
of us.
Yeah. Okay. But you have a really interesting company, a really cool product that I'm really excited and I hope to one day try out because I've been getting into Pilates.
We got a month left of you here. You have to come over
I
the
would
bridge
love to. Yes,
Oakland.
I would.
Okay.
Can I like ride a bike?
You can BART.
I asked 2 people that, and they both gave me the same look. Like, you could try.
I think you can technically bike across the Bay Bridge.
It's really
There's
windy
a
though,
bike
right?
path. I don't know. There's also a bike toll, which I didn't realize.
Wait, are you serious?
Yes. I don't know how to do it. Just BART.
I'll just BART.
Just BART.
The BART's
please.
kind of nice. It's very clean. I went on it 2 weeks ago, and it was nice.
Great. It's very different than New York subways.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
New York is gross.
Yeah,
New York
but-
subways are gross. Okay, but how did you get here? And how long have you been doing your company?
I founded Flexia in 2020.
Okay.
We make a smart Pilates reformer and are building the world's first performance metrics for Pilates. So traditional fitness metrics don't matter in Pilates. Like people will go into, have you done a Pilates class on a reformer before?
Yeah. Kick
So-
my ass.
If you haven't, I see you have an Apple Watch. If
Yes.
you have an Apple Watch, like you go into a studio, you turn it on Pilates mode, and it's tracking that you're doing a Pilates workout. You do your hour-long class, and you come out of it, and you're like, I feel so great. This is amazing. Your teacher's great job. And you're putting your shoes on, and you stop your workout, and you look down, and you're like, I burned 120 calories in an hour. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay. And then you go out, maybe you're sitting in your car and you're like scrolling through all of your activities in your activity tracker, Apple Fitness or whatever you're doing. And you're like, oh, Tuesday I PR'd on my run. Wednesday I did a back squat with 100 pounds or whatever you're doing. And then it just goes Pilates Thursday, 1 hour. You don't know anything about how
Yeah.
well you did, what you did,
Yeah.
what you struggled with.
Yeah.
I think it's a real testament to how amazing Pilates is.
Yeah.
That it is booming
Yeah.
the way that it is. And yet there's literally does not fit into the quantified self movement.
Yes.
Last year, I'll just say this, last year, Pilates was the #1 booked class type on ClassPass.
Really?
And it was the fastest growing exercise activity behind pickleball. Well,
Wow.
pickleball's like crazy, right?
There was a huge TikTok movement
Yes.
about Pilates.
Yes.
And it's what, like, I hate to plug into this, but it's what all the celebrities swear by.
Yeah.
And it is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard because it's the muscles that are not obvious.
Yes. Oh, give all your muscles some love.
Yeah.
All the
It's
tiny
like
muscles.
the tiny ones that, like,
Yes.
really affect how you go throughout your day.
Yeah.
That's what Pilates does.
It is. It's super sneaky, and that's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it burns. It's an hour of burning. And your insides are burning.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's so cool. So you founded it 4-ish years ago.
Yep.
Okay.
I've been in the Pilates. So I first found Pilates in 2012. So I'm a mechanical engineer.
Cool.
I went to school in the Midwest. I worked for an automotive supplier. I worked in the medical device industry. I job hopped a lot, like classic entrepreneur career,
Yeah,
right?
totally. It's like,
Prior.
I'm bored. Let me try something else. I'm bored. Let me try something else.
And I eventually found what I would consider to be my dream engineering job, working at one of the world's biggest Pilates equipment manufacturers. And while I was there, my job was to be on a small team of engineers. We designed, built, the manufacturing floor was right there. So we got to do a lot of testing and working with all the people who actually made the machines that were being sold. And I started taking Pilates classes as a way to learn more about what I was designing and building. And
Like research.
yeah, they had employee classes there, which was great.
You have the machine.
They had the machine. We got to go in the little like showroom and take a class with
Yeah.
employees who were teachers.
That's cool.
And it totally changed my life and the way that I felt in my body. I grew up playing competitive soccer and tore my ACL in high school twice.
Oh my gosh.
Had surgery, did the rehab, and still suffered from knee pain for 10 years. And it wasn't until I did Pilates that my knee pain became manageable. I would even say it disappeared.
Awesome. Wow.
It was before Pilates, I'd go hiking, I'd go dancing, I was very active, and my social life was very active. So I'd maybe go play softball or whatever, and my knee would just talk to me. It would swell up for a couple days after. It was not great, but Pilates really changed how I felt in my body.
Wow.
And so very quickly I was like, I want to learn how to teach this. So I started my teacher training. I was with that company for 2 years, and then I left them because even though it was my dream engineering job, I was like, I gotta do my own thing. So the next several years, I split my time between teaching Pilates in a local studio and traveling the country as a Pilates equipment technician. So I'd go into homes and gyms and studios and work on Pilates equipment of all kinds.
So you really, really understood the reformer.
I
Like,
know the
you know
reformer. Yes.
The most
Yes.
that you could possibly know it.
Yes.
You used it, you taught on it, and you fixed them, and you manufactured them.
Yes.
Wow.
So I got to see the Pilates world, contemporary Pilates world, from all sorts of different angles. And it was really interesting seeing what basically, I don't know what the right word is, but like what the big players were willing to do and where the gaps were and how they were just not being addressed.
You saw a gap.
Yes, I saw a gap. And it really started as I'll work with you and let's figure out how to make the change that I think needs to be made. And no one else with the power to do anything really saw it the way I did and wanted to solve it in any sort of similar way that I did. And that's when I was like, I guess I'll just do it myself.
I love that. That is so entrepreneurial. You just got fed up. You're like, I personally want to see this, so I will build it.
Yes.
Do
Yes. I remember having a conversation the year before I founded the company with my co-founder and CTO, talking about all the things we wanted to see change in the world. And he was basically like, in the Pilates world, sorry. And he was basically, we don't have time for that conversation. And I had this like very engineer-y list of, I want to figure this out, I want to figure this out, and then this will tell me this, and so on and so forth. And he was like, do you think if you did all of those things, it would really change what you think you're eventually going to build? Or do you think you could just build what you think all of that data is going to tell you and go from there? And I was like, maybe I'm trying to make excuses for why I shouldn't take the risk.
Yeah, which is a healthy process.
And then, at that point, he was like, if you decide to start something, let me know. And,
I love
I want
that.
to be your first hire. And
That's cool. That's cool.
yeah, and a year later, there it was.
Damn.
It was time.
A lot more to this.
Yeah. In like founder world, VC world, it's very much like my founder market fit
Yeah,
is fantastic.
it's perfect.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I get to do new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. I get to pick who I work with.
Yes.
I love who I work with.
Yes.
And I get to see what I make,
Yeah.
what we make,
Yeah.
come alive.
Yeah.
And change people's lives. And that's so cool.
Yeah. That's so cool.
It's very cool.
Okay, so you're like, okay, it's go time. Let's do this. So you're an engineer by trade. You have this very, I don't know if vast is the right word, but you have this amazing expertise now because you've amassed all this knowledge from all these different angles on this machine. What was your process in developing the product? This is a large product. Your supply chain must be, you have electronics, so supply chain must be intense. There's so much How did you get there to the point where you were like this? How many iterations until until the one that you first sold? I have so many questions about just like the product development, because this is not, you don't just whip out a smart reformer. Like it takes a long time, I'm sure.
We started with just the hardware portion of it, with the concept of the sensors. I had built a prototype years before that collected data, but the thing that Flexia started with was the actual reformer design. And if you think about in isolation what Flexia, the history of Flexia is, it's a very short development timeline. But that doesn't give credit to all of the basically customer discovery that I did in my regular job the 5 years before Flexia.
Like you almost already knew what this needed to be.
I knew nearly exactly what I wanted it to be.
Wow.
And all of the consideration, when we ran into problems in the design, I knew what the considerations I knew what to consider when coming up against a problem in how I pictured things. What is really interesting is I think at the very beginning, I built a very ugly prototype in my dad's wood shop.
Aren't they all? Did you always have woodshop skills, by the way? Because that could be also really difficult.
Yes. My dad was a professional woodworker, amazing artisan my whole life.
That's so cool.
So he had a shop. So I'm very lucky. And this is the classic entrepreneur advice. It's like, what's your superpower? What do you have as an advantage that no one else has?
Yeah.
And that's what I had. I could make stuff that costs tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. Some
you could
companies
just
spend
go to the
millions of
shop,
dollars
go to dad's house.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I built it because one of the things I wanted to majorly change was dimensions of the machine.
Right.
Not to make it overall bigger or smaller, but to be more efficient. So it fit different body sizes in the studio and was very intuitive to use. So there were two big problems that I saw in the world. One, as a teacher, I taught in a studio that had 6 reformers, but 5 of them were one model and 1 was another model. And people who were taller or bigger fought over the one because it fit them better. It was more adjustable.
Yeah.
Even though it was uglier. Quote unquote ugly. And it was like there's no mathematical reason these machines should not be able to adjust to fit most people. It's just lazy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And there's historical reasons why, but that's like when you work with the big players, it's like, how did they get to where they are today? Incremental changes and blah, blah, blah.
Imagine if fashion was like that. That's the comparison. If Pilates is having this moment where it's really blowing up, why aren't we adjusting? Diversity.
People don't talk about it. It's when I built my really ugly prototype that no one in the public has ever seen a picture of because I invited a friend over and she got on it and it wasn't that usable, but she was like, oh, I have a place for my arms. And then eventually when I had like a working, beautiful prototype, she came over and used it and she was able to do an exercise she had never been able to do before because our carriage platform was wider, and so she had a place for her arms. And she had been operating under the assumption for years that she just wasn't strong enough to do this exercise. But the reality was her body shape was different, and so the advantage that typically thinner people had on traditional machines was they could put their arms on the carriage and create a platform for themselves.
Yeah, it's another balance point.
She couldn't. And so as soon as she was able to have a space for her arms, she just popped right up. It was amazing. And she was like, what was happening?
Like this was the problem all along. Like what?
But this is, we had someone else who's in a larger body get on the reformer and basically cry because they were like, I didn't realize how much I was contorting myself to fit on a typical machine. And I had all these questions in my teacher training about, am I feeling it? Am I doing it right? Why am I not feeling it the other way? And it's just, how do you adjust the machine to the body in front of you? And that was one of the big problems I wanted to solve.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say we did it. Now we have NFL players who are like, I want your machine.
That's
it
so
fits
cool.
me better.
That's so cool.
It's pretty, it has tech,
That's
and
cool.
it fits me. I can use it, and my wife or partner can use it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
it's
so
awesome.
cool. That's so cool. Okay, so you built the first prototype in your dad's shop. How long did it take you to get to the ugly prototype, as you say?
I built the ugly prototype in a couple weeks.
Wow.
I was in the startup community in the area that I was living in, and everybody, investor-wise and everything, was like, you don't have a prototype, or how do you know? And why can't I see this? And then they were like, how do you know there's demand for it? Et cetera, et cetera.
Questioning
So-
your 5 years of customer discovery.
Exactly.
Of course, in typical
And
fashion.
then I was new to the VC
Yeah.
world. I didn't know what I was getting into. And so I was like, okay, if you're asking me these questions, I'll prove it. So I did a self-hosted pre-sale, basically. But you could call it a Kickstarter, but it wasn't on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
allowed people to put deposits down
Yeah.
for this thing that I had not designed or created yet. I had someone on Upwork make some sketches for me. And
Wow.
yeah, that sale,
incredible.
in 19 days, we did $140,000 in pre-sale.
Talk about proof. You had a couple sketches.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We spent like $500 on ads. It was amazing. This is in 2020, right? So like people, the time that at that point was, it was crazy with at-home fitness, but Pilates at home still has this sort of, still to this day has a little bit of a, what? Because everybody's really concerned about safety and form and all of those things. And the instructors are really talented. So anyway, it was proof.
Yeah, I would say so. Six-figure proof. Yeah.
So the money that we took in obviously was not that much, and was a portion of that. And I used that to build a pretty working prototype. We did that in my dad's shop. I did that in my dad's shop. We outsourced the metal parts, but basically did everything else ourselves, ordered all the parts, did all the woodworking, upholstery, everything
Wow.
in the shop. And then that was summer of 2020, had our first photo shoot in January 2021, and still use some of those photos today.
Wow.
It's so close. You can't tell that it's any different from what that is.
Can we just pause for a second? Because the fact that you did this, I went to college at Pratt, and like Manny and I both have shop knowledge, and we know how to make things. We know how to build things. And I don't think it was until just now you explaining this, I was like, oh my gosh, what an asset. Because if you didn't have these skills, you would have to hire somebody to figure out how to do this.
I had a design company, I quote this project, and it would have been at the beginning $80,000 to $100,000.
Wow. And you did it.
And I've looked at other startups at the time who spent literally tens of millions of dollars developing their first product.
And you're just like, hey, Dad.
So this is my
Come on
superpower,
over.
right? That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can learn VC,
Yeah.
but building something that customers want
Yeah.
was my superpower. And we saved a lot of money and got to market faster because of what I
And you have such
could
like
do.
niche experience. And so when you got to the point where you were actually manufacturing this thing and like making edits for mass production or whatever production, really, you have the knowledge because you built it yourself. So
absolutely. This is like, let's talk about going from building one yourself to manufacturing
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
during a supply chain crisis.
Oh my God. Please dive in. I'm interested.
It was really hard. We built our first 400 units basically ourselves domestically, and it wasn't because we wanted to. We tried working with contract manufacturers, but when you're a startup, people are like hesitant to take a risk on you. It's a lot of work to set up manufacturing. And I absolutely think that there's a lot of bias in the product that I'm building. I'm a female founder making a product for women.
Yeah.
Primarily. And the first manufacturing partner we worked with, I fired.
Yeah.
Part of the big reason was I had all of the engineering drawings and they were trying to get concessions on specs that I was making and I wasn't allowing them. And then we got into a meeting and they said, this thing is so over engineered. You don't need to make it the way you're making it. And I was like, excuse me?
Bye.
This is my product. I know the safety ratings we need. I know the people who are going to use it. I have built them and worked on them for the last 8 years. Who are you
Yeah.
to tell me
Good.
that my design is not appropriate?
I would have loved to watch you in this room.
It was awful.
Yeah.
It was really awful. And that's when we were basically like, okay, we know where we can get these parts made. I can train someone to assemble it, a company to assemble it. We can get everything shipped to this one place. And that's how we built our first 400. It was not economical at all.
Yeah.
Quality on parts was hit or miss.
Yeah.
But we learned so much.
Yeah.
And we took that package, made changes, and then went to a very professional contract manufacturer. And our lives changed and our unit economics changed. But I would say like those first 2 years were all about the learning and the tweaking.
Yeah.
But really, I also think it's really cool that if you were to put two of those products next to each other, one today, one of our original prototypes, and then one of the first 400, you would be hard pressed to be able to go, oh yeah, that's different.
Wow.
You wouldn't be able to.
I feel like that's hard to do. That's a lot of management and leadership and directives to the supply because you change suppliers multiple. Well, yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
Not because I'm like holding on tight to that first iteration,
Right.
but that's how it ended up after
Yeah.
learning how
Right.
it was, how hard or easy it was to build
Yeah.
all the parts and how customers used it. And that I was just thinking the other day, man, 4 years ago, I never would have. I had this vision and we're just like, we're living it now.
Yeah. That's so cool.
And it is the coolest thing about being an entrepreneur, I think. Seeing
so
that come to
cool.
life.
Wow, what a product journey. Okay, wait. So I have so many questions. Okay. What was your team like during this whole process? Like, how many people were working on the product development of it?
The first year was just me.
Yeah. So you were figuring everything out.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would consult my dad.
Yeah.
He was always there to, hey, let's do a brainstorming session together. Or,
Oh.
I'm not sure about this tolerance or whatever.
Oh, so sweet. That warms my heart. He's so supportive.
He is amazing. And then I brought on two co-founders. So in early 2021, I applied for Techstars Sports, and we got in and did Techstars Sports in the summer of 2021. So the first day of that program, my two co-founders started full-time with me. So it was 3 of us. And then that summer we brought on part-time CS help. And then at the end of the summer brought on a ops person to help with supply chain and stuff.
Got it.
And then that fall raised our seed round.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool.
it's a small team.
Yeah. So were you, being a founder, you have to do a lot of shit.
Yes.
Especially before you get that seed round. You have to do so much. How much of your time would you say was spent on product development? Because this isn't easy.
All of it the first year. And
Yeah.
The summer, I definitely had to shift more. It was an adjustment. I remember having a conversation with the MD of the program and being like, why do I have this skill set? Why do I need to hire someone? And he was like, you need to fundraise. And I was like, yeah, okay. So it's a full-time job.
Listen, it's one of those, like, I'm going to tell you something.
Yes.
You're not going to like it.
I think my time really went down to like half
Okay.
on product development when I brought on my 2 co-founders.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of day-to-day management that has to happen.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the time between selling the product and then like actually having the product in houses was bliss.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have a product to support in the
Yeah.
field.
Yeah.
Once the products were in home, then the way our team worked totally changed because we had not only to sell new ones, but manage and support the ones that were already out there. And that totally changed the dynamic of the team in a new way. I got to do a lot. But at the end of the day, like, we're a venture-backed company and we needed to raise money, and that was my job. And so there were times where I did very little product development. Those between year 1 and 2 or 3.
Yeah.
There are times like my happy place is in product development, but
Yeah.
there are times when the business, we need money, we need to go raise.
Yeah.
And that's my job.
Yeah.
And so I'm very much, my co-founder, David, is amazing at taking on that sort of burden and having that conversation of, this is the vision that we're working toward. Let's talk about the plan. Okay, now you manage it.
Yeah.
And then I can come in at this milestone.
Yeah.
Or, okay, the next month I don't have to fundraise. So what are we going to get done together?
Wow. Wow. I'm so
and
impressed.
that's probably my biggest, I'm like feeling burnt out, is okay, what can I go like make product wise?
Yeah. That's what you like doing.
Yes.
That's
Film
like,
content, write blogs, be in the community,
yeah.
talk about a new feature, make a new feature, etc.
That's so cool. I'm so impressed with you and your company. That's so cool. I don't think in all the times when we've hung out and stuff, and I don't know if I've ever heard the full founder journey, because we just met in the CEO forum and then the traumatic.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that's not like running a business.
I know,
You're like, I don't really get to sit down, and that stuff isn't relevant to the here and now of the problem we're trying to solve, or the reality we're living and need to bitch about, or whatever.
Which is like a really good point, right? I think a lot of designers and maybe engineers in the product world, in the consumer world, in the hardware world, there's this always dream of being your own boss and everything. There is a harsh reality that at some point, as you've explained, that you do have to leave the product alone, which I think is the hardest part for all of us. Like, my happy place is like getting to add, like, process innovation is so much fun for me for MakeLab. Like, I love it. And I get really creative at solving everyday problems for the team and like putting it into a system and then like demoing it. Like, I love doing that, and it's a bit of my happy spot, but like I can only do it maybe 5-10% of the time. You know?
I think that's the biggest misconception, maybe.
Yes, I would say that.
How to run a business a business requires so much to just run.
Yes.
And the buck stops with you.
Yes. It's a good way of putting it.
And so sometimes this has happened throughout the 4 years. It's really nice when I get to delegate some of that day-to-day management, compliance.
Oh my God.
Accounting, right? All that stuff.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying. But at the end of the day, you don't get to turn your brain off on that.
Yeah.
You have to track it. You have to know it. You have to understand margins and the levers that you pull for your business. And that is not at all related to product.
Yes, not at all.
And so it's really hard when you've got a product problem that's just like calling your name. And then you've got a really boring admin task.
Yeah. You're like, I have to do this.
Maybe you could wait another day.
Yeah, it probably can.
And that, I think, for a product-focused founder is the constant dilemma, and especially underestimating the business side of things, the marketing side of things.
Oh
right?
my God, yeah.
A great product doesn't sell itself.
Unfortunately, no. I don't know when that whole misconception started. I don't know when we were all sold this idea.
It's a dream.
I think Shark Tank fueled that a little bit. Just get on Shark Tank and it'll happen. No, not at all. It's like American Idol, right? Like all these little game shows. No, entertainment industry. That's a whole nother conversation. Oh my gosh. So let's dive into the product itself. I think that would be really interesting to the audience if you're willing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we work right now is we're primarily a D2C company. We make a studio grade Pilates reformer that is smart. So it has sensors on it and it gives you real-time feedback and tracks your progress over time through our online studio. So we have an online studio that has over 200 classes that you can take anytime. And the really cool thing about this is the way that it's changing, I think, accessibility of Pilates and how we're changing the language of Pilates performance. Pilates is something that you don't even know how much weight you're moving because it uses springs for resistance.
Yes.
The more you stretch the spring, the heavier it gets.
Yeah.
So it's all color coded. There are different weights of springs. And I remember I was teaching at a studio and this story is so common. You usually have a wife, an older woman coming in and she loves Pilates and she convinces her husband to come in. And the husband...
I did that with Maddie.
And the husband comes
Yeah.
and they get into it. And so I had this husband who came in and he took classes with me for 6 weeks. And I remember after 6 weeks, I was like, John, your bridge is looking so much better.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Can't you feel the difference? And he's, what do you mean? And I was like, you're using a harder spring. You're able to keep it more stable.
Yeah.
Because you're trying not to move. You've got a little bit more range of motion. And he's, oh, well, yeah, I guess so. And I think like this comes back to this. This is how amazing Pilates is, that when that progress data is not in front of you, people still come.
Yeah.
So imagine what Pilates could be if you had meaningful data that showed you how you were progressing.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do with our product. So we sell the reformer itself for $3,795, and we have a monthly subscription, $39 a month. You might recognize it like a Peloton business model, but I want you to think about it as if Peloton invented the power meter for the bike. Right? What if they were the only company that could get data from a spin class? That's what we're doing, right? So,
That's so cool.
We started D2C, but the horizon for how we can impact Pilates is unlimited.
Oh my gosh, so much. So do you track the tension on the springs?
Yep. So we have sensors on the machine that track load.
I need to see this. I really need to see this. I'm coming by.
Can we film it? And you should put it at the end of this.
We could. Actually, I'll bring all this. I'll bring all the equipment.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
okay.
And so we measure load, distance, and speed and acceleration of the carriage, which is the moving part of the machine.
Okay.
And based on what exercise you're doing, we can tell you what spring you should use. And then if you want to make it harder or easier, we show you how to do that. And
Suggestive.
then we tell you how much weight you're moving, which is more of a vanity metric at this point. And then we have two very specific Pilates metrics, control and consistency.
Yeah.
So control, for example, is if you're doing a bicep curl, for example, are you flinging your arms
Using the momentum.
or are you moving at a steady pace?
Yes.
We want you to be moving at a steady pace.
Yes.
So in real time, we can say red, yellow, green.
Oh.
Consistency is in a set of 8 or whatever the set is, 8 reps. Is rep 8 the same as rep 1 in terms of speed, control, and distance? And that's really important because that's like an instructor tapping you on the shoulder and being like, hey, clean up, don't slack. You're getting tired.
Yeah.
You can't still move the same distance or still, I love this because Pilates works on springs, the further you stretch them, the heavier they get.
Yeah.
So what you see a lot of times is that over a set, people move the springs less distance.
Yeah.
So it's lighter. But you don't necessarily realize you're doing it unless an instructor is telling you.
Yeah.
Or unless Flexia is telling you. We do all that. We have a speedometer to say, hey, this is the tempo we're expecting you to move.
Cool.
And then at the end of class, we give a movement quality score. So this is a score out of 100. It takes into consideration all those things that you're getting in real-time feedback: control, speed, consistency, and basically says, how well did you do that class? And so we've created this philosophy, right, of how do we want you to progress? And one of my big pet peeves in fitness is the absolute values. There's no handicap. So for example, tonal, strength training, smart equipment, really cool product. Their main score that people talk about is a strength score.
Yeah.
It's an absolute value. It will compare you to everybody on their platform. And there are just some people who don't want to be the strongest people in the world, and they will never have the highest strength score.
So it's demotivating.
What's
It's
the
extremely-
relevance?
yeah.
What's the
That's-
relevance?
yeah.
But in this world, I can say my 88-year-old grandmother with spinal stenosis is going to take the same class as LeBron James, who does Pilates, by the way. And
What? That's so cool.
and their movement quality scores can be comparable because it's not about how much weight you moved. It's about how well did you do what we asked you to do. And when you can perform enough, then you're ready for the next challenge, right? And what's that zone? We have this thing called zone of progress. So this is the MQS between 50 and 80.
Movement quality score. Got it.
And when you are performing in this range, we say this is an ideal range for making progress because it's challenging you enough that it's not perfect, but you're proficient enough that you can take feedback, or you're doing it well enough that we know, yeah, you're doing pretty well. If you're above 80, then you're getting into, okay, we need to make it harder so that you're not able to do it so well, because otherwise you're not making progress. You have to challenge yourself. This is what like all of fitness is worked on, right? Progressive loading.
Yeah.
And then if you're below 50, okay, maybe this class is too hard and we need to step it back.
Right.
So that you have enough proficiency to get the benefits.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's the foundation of how we build our tech to communicate to our members.
This is so cool. Like, I want one. But I live in a studio.
We have a few customers who live in New York City in a studio apartment, and this thing is in their living room. I guess technically it's their bedroom and kitchen as well, but it does stand on end. I'm just saying.
Okay.
But when you move to San Diego, you'll probably have more.
I was like, at some point, I was like looking around, and I was like, maybe I could fit it
pull it
here.
right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just it's an added benefit.
Yeah.
It's a Benny. I'm working with us.
I have a few things a few product ideas we should maybe 3D print.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Thank you.
I'm just so surprised that no one else has done it. I guess it's just people didn't identify a need. They're like, it's selling already. And they're like, I don't know. Like, why
Well, I could tell you all of the reasons why people don't want this product, quote unquote. Size is a big thing. When we talk to, these are all the investor type of pushbacks.
Yeah.
Size. Okay. Who has big enough home for this product? Okay. Yeah. It's a limited market, but it's not that much bigger than a rower. Look at how big those companies are.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about how we can take this tech and put it into studios. Like the home market's not the end game, right? Home market, not the end game. Safety is a big thing. How do you keep people safe on a machine that can be used and misused in a lot of different ways? Peloton has learned over and over. That's a big deal. And so we learn from those things. It changes how we teach. It changes how we communicate.
Yeah.
And it's fundamentally a very similar experience to in studio. Most people won't be able to tell the difference. But taking all of those things that a studio does and saying, actually, this needs to be different, right? So for example, here's a design related consideration. When we were making the spring bar, which is an adjustable home position. So if I want to change the starting position for someone who has long legs, I want to move the starting position away from the foot bar so they have a little bit more space, right? Or if there's a short person, I want to move them closer to the foot bar. In traditional Pilates reformers, the spring bar is just a bar that drops into a groove. You just lift it out, it can come out. If you unhook it from the springs, you can just like wave the spring bar around like a baton. But in a supervised environment, like maybe that's okay. But at home, what if someone doesn't put the spring all the way?
Yeah.
And what if they don't put the spring bar in all the way?
Yeah.
And you stretch the spring and now you've got a bar under tension that's going to be flung across the room.
Scary shit.
So how do you design a machine that's going to take into some of those considerations of how can it be misused and then how can we prevent that? So let's capture the spring bar in its entirety so that if something were to happen, you don't have a projectile in someone's home. And that was a big thing for the original design of the machine.
Yeah. Totally. Huh.
But yeah.
There's so much you can do with this. There's so much. Like, I'm putting on like my founder hat, and it's just like my founder brain is going off. I'm just like,
It's so amazing
It's so
to
cool.
think about all the possibilities.
Yeah.
And then you have to come back. Then I have to come back to reality and be like, okay, what do we have the money for? And what do we have the team for?
yeah,
And what do we need to prove?
yeah,
And what's the immediate next steps? And
Yeah.
we have customers going, when are you going to build a tower? Which is another add-on to the
What's a tower?
to the machine. It's something you put on the end of the machine and it changes the exercises you can do. It gives you more options. It's another hardware piece of this. It adds more content, right? Other disconnected reformers have this option. But we have, as a business owner, as a entrepreneur, you have to think about what can we support?
Right.
What are we trying to prove? And
There's
that
risk
is-
for each feature
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So
There's a lot of risk.
You know, there's
Okay.
that's where I think those conversations are really interesting to have. And sometimes they're really frustrating. I will say, like, people who don't know the business and want to jump in and say, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And it's, I'd love to do that.
Yes.
But my team's already maxed out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We want to do what we do really well.
Yeah.
We have a plan for the next whatever.
Go
Yeah, I
wide
love-
or go niche.
Yeah, it's the quintessential focus.
Yeah. It's funny. I was just having this conversation about like external feedback and like when it's just not helpful.
Everybody has an opinion.
Everybody. And it's not just about the product. It's not just about the possibilities. There's so many other factors that go into what you can or cannot do in a moment's time. Like you were just saying.
Ultimately, the only thing that's ever made a difference is customer feedback.
Yeah.
And customer feedback is not just them writing in saying, oh, I want this feature. In fact, you have to be really careful because a lot of times customers will dream up a feature and ask for it, but that's not actually solving the problem they think they're having.
Yeah.
So how are people giving you feedback with churn rate? How are you getting feedback from your customer acquisition cost? What are all these metrics that give you feedback about how well product is doing? And that feedback has been the only feedback that ever makes a difference on our bottom line and how the business grows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning advice from people who get excited about our business, which is really fun to ideate with, is usually not very new, usually not a new idea, and often not actually what our core customer base, it's what they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a really hard thing when you have of who to consider, right? If you're in the VC world, so much of what you do is about, you and I talk about this all the time, so much of what you do is about creating FOMO, getting attention. And that can often be at odds with what's actually going to sell more of your product.
Yep. I think a big point that people miss sometimes when giving feedback is like not thinking about the target intended user.
Or they think about it, but they don't actually know it.
Yeah.
There are so many people in my circle who are so helpful, but there's got to be a long-standing relationship. So we've had a lot of conversations about what's worked, what hasn't, etc. Or a very specific, I want to answer this question. Here's the context we need to know, right? Conversations where you go in and you meet someone new and they're like, how can I help in 20 minutes?
That phrase is very triggering.
That's really hard. That's really hard,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're like, you have this person, I want to talk to that person. Here's what's going to convince you to introduce me, or whatever, whatever the specific reason is.
Yeah.
And that I think has been one of so many people want to help.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I never realized how many other people were out in the world that were just amazing people who
Like super kind.
want to genuinely help.
Yeah.
And I understand it because I want to help other people too now. But knowing what to ask for is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
And I've really had to develop that. And it still takes a lot of effort to know what to ask for from certain people, to know this is within their wheelhouse, right?
It's like matchmaking in a way, like matchmaking your needs with their capabilities. It's a lot. You have to dig deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw this on Instagram. I love little like one sentence hot takes.
Yeah. I love it.
It was something like, I didn't realize until I was adult how many successful people, I didn't realize until I was an adult that just because you're quote unquote successful doesn't mean you're actually good at what you do.
It's so true. Oh my God.
So there are some amazing people out there who could be really helpful, who have never built a unicorn.
Yeah.
And there are some amazing people who have and are not helpful.
No.
And so finding that match of who can be helpful is hard.
It's really hard. It's hard. Sometimes because it's the founder journey is so incredible, in which, like you said, there's so many people that I want to help, and they don't say, how can I be helpful? Some people say it in a way that's not actually helpful, and some people actually mean it. And a lot of people do actually mean it. But sometimes I don't know quite what it is yet. I feel something there. I sense that there's something there. So I go into a meeting and I just start talking. I just start having a conversation, and it's awkward as hell. Like, I'm leading it. I have no idea where I'm going with it. And I try to go as long as I can until I find something.
Yeah.
But it's tricky. And who has the time to plan like that? Because this takes a lot of energy to do that matchmaking process of your needs and their capabilities. We don't have that time.
The people who have had oftentimes the biggest impact on our business are really good matchmakers.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you should talk to so-and-so.
Yes.
Or they say, I have my opinion, but you should also talk to so-and-so, and facilitating that connection. And I find networking really hard.
Yeah. It's awkward as hell.
As a product person, I want to be talking about product and building product. Mm-hmm. And going out and meeting people in a networking environment is
like speed networking environment.
Yeah. And it's very hard to make that connection. It's a very performative, I think.
Yeah.
And
totally.
I think you and I were talking about how I love one-on-one networking.
Oh, me too.
Right? This traumatic self-talk workshop was one of those things, though, where you and I had spent time in a CEO forum, but this was really where we got to connect.
Yeah.
Because
I really saw you in that moment.
And I love that.
Me too. It was traumatic, but it was net positive is what I said.
It was net I love that, net positive.
It's so robotic because that's how it feels.
Yes,
I personally hated it, but it was net positive.
Yes.
So
you and I have slightly, I sympathize very much with your experience. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I learned about myself,
Me
and
too.
I got I got to hear real stories
Yes.
from other people, which
Yes.
is not the case in most networking events.
No, I love when you can break that barrier of I'm going to try to sell you and convince you on something or persuade you about something. And when you can just see the person.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I think so much of the startup world and the stories that we hear are all about the successes. And
It's not accurate.
it's not accurate, but it also makes people who are in the journey feel really bad
Yes.
because things
Yes.
aren't going well.
Yes.
Things never go well.
No.
And until you can come out of that and say, I can still build something really great and all of this shit goes wrong, those two things are not separate. They go hand in hand. And just because you don't have to reach a certain revenue milestone
Yeah.
to be able to talk about all the bad shit.
Yeah.
And so much of this networking is going out and saying, I built something good, let me prove it to you because we did X number of dollars in revenue and we have this investor and we have this, that, and the other. And it's actually, how's your business working?
What's your actual model? How do you make money?
And what do your customers say? And I think I don't know how to solve that problem.
I know. It's tough because it's just like I am not a fan of the early stage, like pre-seed events. Like I've been to a bunch of them during Tech Week in New York and whatnot. And the room was full of people saying, oh, I just closed 2 million yesterday. Oh, I just closed 500K. Great. The work just started. That's not the milestone.
You remember what I said? It's great before you have a product out there.
I think I texted a friend that the other day. I was like, you know, you're lucky you're pre-revenue. It was one of those days where everything was going wrong from all angles. And I was like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the
Fundraising.
gloating.
Fundraising is hard and it is a skill. And there are some people who are masters at it.
Yes.
And what irks me is the inability of most people to separate the fact that fundraising is a skill and running a business is a skill.
Yes.
And very rarely do those two things overlap in one person.
Yes. That's
So
what I learned.
what you put this person who's a really good salesperson on a pedestal and go, this business is amazing. And they've created this story, which don't get me wrong, this is an amazing skill. And it's not to be taken for granted.
No.
But is that actually the best business that you should be putting money in?
Yeah.
And investors will tell you this is, okay, I'm evaluating you and your business, but I'm evaluating whether you'll be able to raise more money too.
Yeah.
And how well you can play that game. Because at the end of the day in the venture world, you have to keep raising money.
Which kind of sparked an idea. There should be a fund. Maybe it doesn't follow a venture model with the venture expected returns and the timeline, but there should be something. There should be a model that invests in founders that are really good at building businesses.
Yeah, I think I think most investors would say that's our model.
We aim to be helpful.
And they have but that's the thing. They have their criteria for what they want to invest in. And they have to make quick decisions. And how do you get your business story across
in
15 minutes or in one document and to get to the next stage? And that is also a skill. And that's why networking and connections and who you know is so important, because those people can shortcut that process.
Yes.
For
It's
you.
who you know. It's always about who you know in this
Yes.
world,
Yes.
unfortunately, which is
Yes.
hard. But wow. I learned so much today. This is incredible. Because we had talking so much about just the founder journey, but not specifically about like our businesses really. And I think this is the first time I'm really hearing all of it. I'm so excited to come and visit. Like, I'm like, let's put it on the calendar. Like,
Excellent.
Let's do it.
All right. We got our homework.
Yeah. Let's see. I think, was there anything else that we wanted to cover? I think that was a lot of it.
I talked a lot. Thanks
I
for
love
listening.
it. I love this. I personally am interested too. Like this podcast is a way for me to learn too. I don't know. I like hearing these stories from other people. It's shit that's not always talked about. Most of it is the humble gloating or not so humble gloating.
That's one of my favorite actually things to ask advisors or new people I meet is tell me your story.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think there's so much to be said for relating to someone's story or hearing some of the things that aren't widely known and going, oh, I didn't know that I did that the same. We just had this the other day when we were talking. Oh, I didn't.
Oh my
I was
gosh,
doing
yes.
this. I was doing this way, and I didn't know anybody else did it. And I thought I was dumb for doing it, but it turns out this is actually a really smart thing that everybody does, but no one talks about.
Yeah. No
Right?
one talks about some of those standard basic shit.
Yes.
So it's very invalidating.
Yeah. So sometimes the open-ended story part is really interesting.
Yeah.
And helpful.
I agree. I always ask too. I think for me with Jenny, I think what one part that really made me trust her as an advisor was the fact that not only has she done Bolster, Techstars, MakerBot, but she also did the bookstore. So she really understands like a non-venture backed business with cash flow. That is a whole nother realm. Like we were just saying, funded versus just like running the business. That fact really made me trust her. I was like, okay, so you really understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's knowing what that person's background and lens is looking at your business changes everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
And through all the hardship though, like I wouldn't trade this for the world. That's how I'm a real, like we're both real ones.
I know.
Like, we complain so much and like we get together and just
Yes. But that's the thing
get
is like
into it.
people are like, what would you do if you weren't doing Flexia? And I'm like, I would start Flexia.
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know. I'm striving for a little bit more work-life balance. That's such a hot term, but I'm actually trying to like find things that give me joy outside of work these days. Because in my 20s, it was all hustle. Like I'm such an achievement-based person. I still love, despite how busy and stressed, like I still love the life.
Yes.
I love all that it gives me.
Wouldn't want to be crying at work anywhere else.
Yeah. Same. I think that's a good note to end on, to wrap up with.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming out. I always do these on Saturdays because that's when everything's quiet in both New York and SF. So thanks so much for coming out. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting and can't wait to get you on the Reformer.
I'm so excited. And also, I'm really excited to see this episode out. This is going to be a good one. Like, we barely planned and the conversation just flowed. That's the vibe.
Chemistry. You might be good at what you do. I don't know.
There's a little bit of that, but it's half and half. It takes two to tango, so.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe to Talking Design and Engineering on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, or follow MakeLab on social media for the latest in on-demand 3D printing services.